No. Marissa? Oh. Maddie?
Going to the Mexican place back home.
Angela?
I hung out with my grandma a lot.
Taylor? I went on ASB and fire, water, and house. Mario? Or Michaela?
Peter, Proxy, Mario, Sailboat in the ocean.
Lowry? Nick?
What's the question? Oh, I got a puppy. A second one.
Brooke? Allie?
Nice. Good work. Did you go somewhere warm? So there was a risk.
Yeah.
Good work.
I have had dentistry like every 30 minutes.
Jack? And you farmer / brand seller?
Doing a photo.
Not Warren?
Erica Froxing from Florida with my companies.
Matt Thomas?
Sleeping.
Kelly? I went to Disney. Neil?
I saw Les Mis on Sunday.
Stephanie House?
I went to the Grand Canyon.
Tori?
I saw a lot of dolphins.
Ben?
Senior John I San Diego.
Joe?
Oh, I got a nose job.
Andy?
Probably sleeping for the 3 days.
Colleen?
Yeah, just catch up on sleep.
Liv?
I work at a flower shop, so just being around flowers.
Marjana?
That's a you
I
answer.
caught some gnarly waves.
Natalie?
Just like seeing my family.
Austin?
The beach.
Emma?
We went on a wine safari tour in California, and it had old animal actors and wine.
Cindy?
Wait, it's a wine.
And Lucy?
So did you say sushi burritos? That's the second time. Oh, was that the last one? Oh, okay. Mine better. I went snorkeling in Cozumel, which was really cool. And we saw a barracuda, which was terrifying. Becky?
I worked on Constitution on beach.
So, dedicated member. Okay, so I'd like, is there a motion on the floor to approve the minutes of last week, well, before spring break?
Murphy, off campus.
Second. Bring
Alright.
it off campus.
Thank you. Question though, who just said yes? All right, all in favor, raise your placard, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Sweet. All right, student ideas and concerns. Is there anyone on the floor with an idea or concern? Or John, see if you can say first. We'll save yours until after our review. Anything else? Oh, thank you for going to. Okay, great. No one else? Last chance, anybody? All right, great, thank you. Presentations and discussions. We're actually going to start with our student org. I know that says VP candidates, but.
All right. Well, we're Chinese Language and Culture Club. My name is Sarah Bronstein, and I would be our VP of Programming.
I'm Lucas Wath, and I'd be the president of business.
I'm Graham Paul and I'd be the VP.
All right. So our agenda for today, we're going to introduce our club, which we just did. We're going to talk about the need for Chinese Club, our agenda, our potential activities, our logistics, including our officers and our advisors, and then we're going to conclude with a review of everything. So we like to open with this quote, "The limits of my language are the limits of my world." So here at Butler, we're always striving to be excellent and to open up possibilities for ourselves. One way that we do this is through studying foreign language, so we can take the stage confidently in whatever place we're working at, whether it be in the courtroom, in a business conference. And one way that we can do that and express ourselves throughout the world is by using different languages.
Yeah, I feel like it's important just to mention here that all of us are in Chinese together. We're in 204 right now. You're honorarily in 204 right now, but that's like where we're coming from.
So Chinese is the most spoken language in the world, as you can see. 20% of the population speaks Chinese, so there's a great need for knowing Chinese.
I can attest to this. I know some of you can. You probably saw it, but going through high school, you probably saw the Chinese language program just grow rapidly if they offered it. I did. I knew more kids in Chinese by the end of high school than I knew in Spanish, honestly. So it is growing, and we will need to accommodate those students coming in.
I was continuing with that. They're actually putting Chinese in the elementary schools where I'm from, which is just demonstrating how much it's growing.
And Chinese is now a major here at Butler. This is the first year for it. Alright, so why do we need this club? Because Chinese, once again, is the most known language around the world. So it will open up opportunities for students in any field they go into. There are clubs for all of the other languages offered at Butler, but there is no outlet for Chinese students to learn outside of their classrooms.
Which primarily because the major is so new.
And then while there are other Asian groups on campus, they focus solely on culture, whereas this club would focus on sharpening students' language skills. This language would offer opportunities for students to excel even after they graduate, and it would allow not only interaction with each other, but to enhance our learning of different levels of Chinese. It will also help promote cultural diversity at Butler. So we have a few different types of activities. The majority of our activities are language-based. So some of our proposed activities are watching Chinese movies and engaging in discussion of the movie after in Chinese as well. Reading Chinese poetry, talking with Chinese exchange students, pairing up for stories and discussing them.
Really quick, I mean, based off some of these activities, it may seem that this club would cater mainly to people who already have at least semi-understanding of the language, like people who are like us enrolled in the classes here. But we do want to try to keep in mind that not everyone would, and we would have introductory material and whatnot for people who are just interested in the language as a whole.
We do have some cultural-based activities, but we have a language element combined within them. So eating at authentic Chinese restaurants and ordering in Chinese, celebrating various Chinese holidays, and we discuss them in Chinese, working on calligraphy, which is Chinese handwriting, so furthering that. And then we have several service-based activities, including volunteering at local immigration centers, writing letters of encouragement to Chinese immigrants in Indiana, and offering a one-day enrichment class for kids learning Chinese at local IPS schools to learn more about Chinese and the Chinese Festival.
Being located in Indianapolis, sometimes, actually, like all the time, it's kind of hard to actually practice Chinese in real life situations. So having a Chinese club where we can kind of brainstorm different ways to, do these activities and build on our language would definitely be beneficial to us.
So our logistics, we have a very heavy staff. President of programming would be me. President of business would be Lucas Wathen. Vice President Grant Poland. Treasurer Nate Kessel, and our secretary would be Shelby Bentley. If you'll notice, we have primarily first years, so this club will not die out. We do know that there was a Chinese club in the past, and because a senior had been running it, it drifted out, so we'd like to reinstate it. And then our advisor would be Xiao Shenglia,
Who is our professor of Chinese, yeah. That's all of it.
Yep.
All right, so questions?
So I'm not doubting there's a need for this club, but have you gauged like the student interest in about like how many people, not an exact number, but like is there an interest for this on campus?
Yes, there is. We have talked to several people within our own class and in different levels of Chinese, and even just some people that are interested in culture. Right now we're gauging between 40 and 50 people.
So, we have a little bit of old business from last week. That's fine. All right, just kidding. We're gonna respect your time. So, Justin Poitras is our first candidate for vice governor. Check him out. Okay. He's our first candidate for. He's currently in Australia right now, so he's gonna FaceTime after we play his game.
I was gonna say that video makes a little more sense.
That's a little problem.
Translate. And this is good.
Currently, I'm coming to you from Adelaide, South Australia, where I'm studying abroad for the semester. So I apologize in advance for not being able to be there with you and present in front of you, but I'm excited to announce my platform for the SGA position of faculty.
Good positive. This is all up. Okay, well, just turn on your ears really, really high. Because the machine's also way up, so.
President of Finance for the 2018-2019 So with that, let's go ahead and start. As a quick introduction, I'll first be going through a little bit more about my experience and qualifications for the position, and then I'll move from there on into the current standing of the Finance Board, and finally I'll discuss my own vision and platform for the position of Vice President of Finance. So to begin with, I just want to start off with a little bit more background about myself and what qualifies me to be running. So for the last 2 years, I've served on the SGA Finance Board, and this last year I was actually the accountability chair on our executive team, assisting Ryan with leading our group and in charge of many duties, including auditing organizations that receive grants. Additionally, we implemented the creation of a new grant matrix, which furthers our board's goal of enhancing the public experience by providing the most possible funding for student organizations. I have many strong leadership qualities that I've been able to demonstrate through a variety of on and off-campus positions, and this leads me to believe that I will be a very diverse and well-rounded representative for all students and not just a single group, because I've had all of these experiences and I've had these connections on campus. So in terms of our current standing with the Finance Board, things that we're doing well is we've enhanced education. We got more groups to apply over the last few years. We've streamlined the grants process significantly, and we created a new matrix which allows us to give out more funding to worthy organizations. As far as areas to improve on and go with our current board, though we have increased our education, we still lack a effective marketing strategy for the most part. We have multiple operational and communication practices that we can improve on. We have many bylaws that certainly need updated. So with all this in mind, my platform for the VP of Finance has 3 key areas of focus: education, efficiency, and opportunity. As Vice President of Finance, one of the first things that I want to do is to increase our education and marketing on campus. In order to give out the most money that we can, we need to see an increase in applications. And though we've seen that increase in the last few years, only about 1/3 of organizations applied for a grant last year. We need a new marketing strategy to include Starbucks tables, flyers, and generally utilize our education and PR share in order to have more efficient meetings so that we don't see as many insufficient or incomplete budget proposals coming in, and have better communication with these organizations to simplify the grants process as a whole. Though we've made a lot of improvements with our efficiency, we can definitely continue to streamline our grants process through a variety of simple operational with our email account, communicating with students, presentations of technology issues, auditing, and simply just having an understandable and simple website. But by implementing a new set of standards, I believe that as VP of Finance, we can make this an easier process for everyone. Additionally, I want to see more efficient and effective communication internally and externally. I want to have a more collaborative board, and then finally, I want to have more communication with SGA by implementing a representative for each SGA board. Finally, an area that I want to focus on the most is opportunity for all students. So in the past, we've had a few different groups come in, such as Independent Student Council and Alternative Spring Break, Alternative Break, that necessarily have not gotten nearly the funds needed that they could utilize for their events because of outdated bylaws in the Finance Board. So in order to have a higher investment impact on more students, I would like to see an update on some of these outdated bylaws, and in order to increase our representation for all groups on campus. Additionally, every year we always have a surplus in our budget, and as Vice President of Finance, I would like to see more of these funds going towards current students rather than simply being recycled back into the budget. So this goes back to the point of getting the word out there that we are a resource on campus for students, organizations to use. Just to conclude, as Vice President of Finance, I would like to see an enhanced marketing and education process, more efficient operational and communication standards, and further action to better finance board investments for the entire Butler community. Thank you all for watching, and I hope that through this video you've gotten a better understanding of my qualifications, my passion, and my vision for the advancement of this role in SGA, and why I believe I would make the best fit for your next Vice President of Finance. I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of the semester, and I look forward to seeing you all in June. Bye, everyone.
So right now he is looking that over. We're gonna pull up the laptop.
Dialogue in order to enhance more content.
Did you do that?
What changes?
So he said, sure, Stephanie said, how kind of specifically would you like to update the bylaws, as you referenced a couple slides in your presentation? Is that right, Stephanie?
Yeah.
So, I'll change that. So what I want to do is basically, so we had our matrix requires us, and our current bylaws requires us to put groups into a bracket, so that restricts what we can give them. So we've had a continuous surplus in our budget basically every year because we have to place them in this bracket. So when like Independent Student Council came in last year, asking for funding for, as like a newer organization, they had high expense rates. So we needed to, we had to put it in.
Hold on, see if Roseanne's from the one. Hold on, Justin. See you though. I don't know. Right now.
I'm really worried.
Could you repeat the last like 40 seconds of what you said? Where you started talking about Independent Student Council? Yeah, after Independent Student Council.
Yeah, so when Independent Student Council came, they were a new organization that had a lot of initial expenses, initial startup expenses, and then something that they needed for their events, because with the current bylaws, that restricts us into putting them in a bracket based off of their expenses and the net revenue that they have in their current pulse account. So that would require them to drain their pulse account, and then on top of that, we were only allowed to fund them like $55 or something. So the bylaws basically a little bit more subjectivity, just so that we can have that ability to fund groups like Independent Student Council or Alternative Brit that have more expenses for whatever reason.
Thank you, Justin. Any other questions? All right, Justin, we'll keep you on the laptop in case someone has something later, but we're going to take you off the screen and invite our next. Lydia.
Hi everyone, so my name's Lydia Oakes. I'm a sophomore political science and history major. So when I first came onto Butler's campus, I right away immediately got involved in SGA and on finance board, and in that I found the thing on Butler's campus that I was passionate about and that I wanted to be involved with. But for a lot of students, that's not SGA. They want to be involved in a different organization, and every student on this campus deserves to have that thing that makes them feel passionate, makes them feel involved on this campus outside of their major. So some of my other on-campus involvement that I got involved with after I joined SGA is I'm also the treasurer of the Club on Campus College Democrats, and I'm the executive administrator of my sorority Alpha Phi, which involves a lot of like communication and kind of secretarial duties. It's kind of an odd title. And I've also spent the past 2 years serving on finance board, which I've really enjoyed. So the reason that I love finance board is because clubs get to come into us, and it doesn't matter if it's a club that's been on campus for like 3 decades and they're doing great and there's tons of members, or if it's a club that's just starting up, like a club that just came in and asked to get approved to start. And those students are passionate about what they're doing on campus, and they want to have the opportunity to grow and get more students involved and provide really amazing programming and opportunities to our student body. And Finance Board gives them the funding to be able to do that. So one of my goals as VP of Finance would be to increase the accessibility of Finance Board. Right now, a lot of clubs don't know that there's funding available, and they also don't know that if they don't have money already, they can't come in. So it's really difficult for clubs to get started and actually provide the things that they want to do on this campus. So I'd like to increase the accessibility of Finance Board through some marketing strategies. Working with the Marcom board, of course, I think would be most effective for spreading the word about Finance Board and just also making it a little bit more approachable. I think it can be really intimidating to come in to a room full of finance majors and talk about money if you're not a finance major and you don't really know how to use Excel. So I'd like to make it a lot more accessible because every organization on this campus deserves to have the opportunity to get funding to put on the kind of programming that they want to. And then I'd also like to address a problem that I see on the current Finance Board. So if you look around this room, there's people from every single college, every single place on campus, and that's really amazing because you guys represent all of student voices on this campus. In Finance Board, we're made up of almost all business majors. I myself am not a business major, so I think that I've been able to provide a kind of unique perspective, but something I'd really like to do as VP of Finance, as we're taking applications for next year, is really try to target people that are not in the School of Business and find people that represent lots of different voices on campus. I think we do a really good job of being open-minded, but I think it could always be better, and Finance Board should be more representative. We're spending student money, and right now, most of the people on our campus only speak for a sixth of our campus. I don't think that that's really the mission of Butler. I think Finance Board, as a part of SGA, should be as representative of the entire student body and of the rest of SGA in order to be a lot better and provide better programming and better opportunities for students on this campus. So those are really my two main goals as VP of Finance. So thank you for your time. My presentation's a lot shorter, but yeah, are there any questions? Yes, sorry.
So you talk about how you want to increase representation and you want to reach out, but how would you do that and how do you try to get more people involved?
So the way that the applications have happened the past 2 years, it's gone out in like the Butler Connection and stuff, but I think just even the title, Finance Board, people are like, oh, business majors, finance majors, and I kind of like went out on a limb, I feel like, as a poli-sci major when I applied for it, and it turned out that I didn't need to be a finance major or know completely what I was doing when it came to money, because a lot of it is about student organizations, not necessarily the money part. So I'd like to just even in that little synopsis on the Butler Connection or in any form of marketing, make it really clear to students that all voices are welcome, that they don't have to have a huge background in finance, it doesn't need to be what they're interested in, is that a lot of it's more about the organizations and the people that are coming in than it is about the actual money. Any other questions?
Stephanie Nahas, I saw your hand up. I don't know.
She kind of answered it. I was going to ask, like, if you could foresee any issues with people not having a financial background, because I know, like, while it is granting money to a lot of student organizations, but isn't it also, like, as far as, like, helping them create a budget and knowing how to do that as well?
So yeah, that is like a big part of what we do is we look into the students' budgets. Obviously, they have to have a really organized budget when they come in, but I think that the people that are on the board that are business majors are very good at doing that. I'm not good at that, but I've been able to, I think, be successful on Finance Board. When we're doing the oversight on the other parts of the SGA budget, that might be more challenging for other non-business majors, but I think when people are coming in and we're discussing what impact they're going to have on campus, what kind of programming they're going to do, I think all voices should be represented in that. I think everyone is capable of that, even if they're not good with money. Anything else?
Any other questions? All right, thanks so much, Olivia.
Okay, thank you all so much for your time.
Hey, Matt, I'm going to make sure this is the right presentation for you.
Oh, perfect.
Thanks.
Should I do it on this?
I would have one actually for you.
Okay.
So just make sure that this is the best.
Yeah, I just want to kind of.
All
So
right.
we have 5 minutes for presentations. Well, however you like.
Yeah, it'll be close to that, hopefully. All right, hello, my name's Matt Rudd. So I'm running for VP of Finance as well. Let's go to the next one. So just a brief overview of why I'm running really quick. These are basically what I want to cover in this presentation, why I'm running, my goals, and why I'm qualified. So I'm actually not a business major, so yeah, sorry, yeah, I was pointing at you. So I'm actually mechanical engineering, computer science double major, so this isn't really going to be a business presentation. So actually, if you guys can pull up your phones, you can just go to the Kahoot website or the app, that'd be cool. We're just going to do like a little finance board quiz, try to keep things fun. But really quick, I'll just talk a little bit about why I'm doing this. So it actually started a year ago when I decided that I wanted to run for this position. It was during while Nick was president, and there was one particular presentation. Fortunately, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I want to say it was something like Math Club. Something that's definitely not for everyone, but some people are really interested in it. But the person who came in gave this super passionate presentation. He was so excited about what he was talking about. And it kind of flipped the switch in my brain that finance board isn't just like, oh, we have money, we give to student organizations. It's an opportunity for us to take the average Butler student and their ideas and actually help them come to fruition. So we'll do this really quick, if you want to just click on the link. So Ryan Coltice gave me permission to use these questions. If they violate anything, you can blame him. But I'll just have playing. Think of your usernames now. I'm just
the
playing.
game pin?
It's left side.
It says play.
Yeah, there we go.
Alright, you'll give us the pin.
Perfect classic. So this usually takes a second, but yeah. I just kind of like to gauge what people know about finance board and what we do. There's the pin.
I feel like I guess I should be answering these questions.
Probably did. But love the name so far.
That too.
Matt 1, Matt 2. All right, are we good? Is everyone in? All right, let's start now. So the first question that we're asking is essentially what SG's overall budget is. This is the one that Ryan said might be a little bit secretive, but hopefully it's okay.
$2. We all should know this.
Don't put me on blast
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, so SGA's overall budget actually sits somewhere around $750,000. Of that, finance board has about 10%, a little bit more. So we're at $76,000. And my next question is actually how much of the budget did we use last year? So nice job, Pete.
Well, how'd that happen?
So this is how much money we had remaining in our budget last year. I probably should have said that beforehand. So yeah, it actually was at 25,000, which, as you can see, is really only like a third of what our total budget is. But something that's actually really, really cool is that number 18,000 is actually where we're at right now this year, and that's partially due to the grants matrix that Justin talked about a little bit. And Ryan projected that we'd be somewhere just under this 10,000. And then we'll move on to the last question, which is how many student organizations we funded last year? Is JCA, is that you yet?
Yeah.
Are you playing too?
So yeah, the actual answer is actually 72, which is really, really good. But when you think about it, Butler says that there's about 160 student. So when you think about it, Butler says there's about 160 student organizations on campus, which means that we're less than 50% financing all of them. So if you want to hop back to the presentation, and just go to the next one. So since I'm kind of short on time, I can't go super in depth, but just in terms of who doesn't know what finance board actually does, mainly we manage the overall SGA budget. I'm sure you guys are fully aware of that. We have the grant proposal process, which we've also talked about, and then the end of the year audits, which I'll get into in a second. So my goals for the 2018-2019 school year fall under outreach, transparency, and bridging the gap. So in terms of outreach, again, because I don't have as much time, we have 4 executive positions besides the VP, one of them being communications. I'd like to see that as more of an active role in terms of actually reaching out to different student organizations. Then a big one that I thought of is the greatest gathering of student organizations that we have on campus is Block Party.
And just by being present there and working with marketing and communications to get flyers, business cards, whatever it may be, we can say, hey, we're SGA Finance Board, and we're here to help you fund whatever your events or organizations might be. And then finally, I know Justin said something similar to this in his presentation, just being set up somewhere like the bookstore where we can be more centralized, maybe have treats or something to bring people in, and then they can know and come in and say, hey, we're Finance Board, here's what we can do to help you out. Then for transparency, just being more clear of what Finance Board actually does. I feel like it's not super common knowledge, and even just working on this presentation, I ran into a handful of people who had no idea what we did or what we could provide for them. Being more clear of where students' money goes, just because of the student activity fees, I think that would be something that would be really helpful. I know that's something that I talked to a little bit about, talked to Sam with a little bit about. And then also just making sure new members of our board feel comfortable and informed so that they can also go out and tell more about what we do.
So you were at 6 minutes.
Okay.
So,
and then, should I just run through this super quick?
or do you have less time for questions? But go for it.
Yeah, okay. And then just updating our auditing process, building better communication between us and SGA, and then, yeah, I guess we could just go into questions. I know it's sitting pretty close
Absolutely.
there.
Are there any questions? Oh, come on, guys. You're sacrificing your time. We can continue if you'd like.
Well, finally, I was just going to say why to choose me. I have 3 semesters of Finance Board experience. I wasn't here last semester because I was actually abroad in Australia, which I think is really funny. And then just, I have good knowledge of what Finance Board actually does. I've talked a lot with Nick, our VP last year, and Trent and Ryan, the kind of co-VPs this year. I know that's kind of confusing. And then just because I'm not a finance major, I don't want it to be a deterrent. I believe that actually because of my different major, I still have the knowledge that's necessary, but I can also bring a different innovation to the position.
Olivia?
So you talk about transparency, but how do you necessarily want to make that aware to people? Like so there's like the outreach, but then being transparent.
Right, so I think the outreach is definitely a huge part of that. Understanding, hey, we're Finance Board, this is what we actually do. And I think part of why I said our members personally too, I want to make sure that they have a strong and solid understanding of what we all do, because it's easy to get on the board and just sit through our meetings and say, oh, I vote to give money, I vote to not. But I learned so much more about what we actually do just from even preparing for this presentation and talking to the VPs. So I want to make sure that everyone has a more solid understanding of that so that then they can help other people understand it as well.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
No, I'll just point to you when I want to.
Perfect.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jimmy Gleichman. I'm a sophomore accounting and finance double major from Whitby, New Jersey, and today I'm going to talk to you about some of my experience and qualifications, what I want to do for the position, and why I'm running for the position. So before I got to Butler, I knew I wanted to get involved with SGA. It was something I wanted to do in high school and I wasn't able to do, and I always regretted that. And I wanted to make sure that when I stepped on this campus that I got to be a part of SGA. And so when I found Finance Board at Block Party for the first time, it immediately caught my attention because it was combined 2 of my interests in finance and SGA. I was able to find a home in this. In the last 2 years, I was able had the privilege of serving on Finance Board, and I now think I have the skills, the knowledge, and the vision necessary to be a good VP of Finance. So some of my experience, so my first year, I was a general Finance Board member, so I was helping allocate money and creating a portion of SGA's budget. This past semester, I moved on to our executive team where I served as our education and public relations chair, which is only the 2nd year that we've had that position. And then with Justin going abroad and some other students having jobs away from Indianapolis, I actually served as accountability chair. So I basically, I was keeping track of how we allocated money and just working with the post office. So in my 2 years of working on Finance Board, I've kind of had a hand in every part of Finance Board, and I'm very comfortable with how it operates and how it should operate. Some other experience that I have, I'm also the current Vice President of Finance for the Interfraternity Council, so I have experience with setting a budget for that and recording financial transactions. And actually next year, I'm going to be the assistant treasurer for Phi Delta Theta. So you can kind of see that passion that I have for finance. And it's something I really am passionate about. So there's 4 things I really want to do as Vice President of Finance. The first is kind of increasing diversity on the board. Our current exec team is all male business majors, and our board is predominantly business majors and Caucasians. And so there's not as much diversity. So what I would do as the Vice President of Finance board is making sure that executive board has equal representation of male and female on the board. And even just increasing diversity on the board, whether it's majors, backgrounds, so we can have those differing opinions and come to a better decision. The second thing I'd like to do is alter the matrix to benefit clubs with less financial need. As you've heard, we've had a new matrix system that has been largely successful. We've been able to increase DIP spending and help organizations like Fall Alternative Break receive more funding. But some of the clubs that have a smaller financial need have not received as much money as they fully can. So what I would propose is that for those clubs that don't have a small net loss could receive full funding from SGA, because we have the flexibility in the budget. Third thing, kind of clarifying, defining executive member roles. One of the first things I would do is move public relations into the communication chair's role. Since their role is to communicate with just the board, I think it would make sense for them to communicate with the community as well. And this will allow the education chair to focus on that outreach to on-campus organizations, which is something we really need to do. And just kind of clarifying roles of people on the board, and just having those strong internal controls and communicating to the board as a whole. And the fourth thing is build a more cohesive group. This has, I think, been one of the biggest things that have been lacking on finance board, is that people don't know each other at all. Like, people don't, you go a whole year and not know each other's names. And that doesn't lead for productive discussions. So what I want to do is early on in the year have group on and get people familiar, so we can have those productive discussions. And then once we're comfortable, I want to be able to expose members of finance board to other aspects of SGA, so they're familiar with that, and then the other aspects of SGA are more familiar with what we do, because I don't think a lot of people understand what our role on SGA is. And so if there's one thing you should know about me, is that I really care about this board. It's meant a lot to me. I've learned so much about finances, and it's really helped with my development as a leader. And so I think through my 2 years of experience on the board, I think I have the skill set and the knowledge necessary to succeed in this position, and I think I can make finance board even better than it is right now. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
We have about 3 minutes for questions. Stephanie?
Sorry. Can you clarify what you mean by helping organizations that need less financial aid?
So what happens a lot is we have, so basically the way the matrix is set up now is it's based on net loss. So basically the difference between your expenses and revenues. And so larger organizations like Fall Alternative Break has a large net loss, and based on the matrix they're able to get more money. But say, take an organization like Accounting Club that has maybe like only a $200 net loss, they can only get 55% of their net loss. And so, and really that, like, does it really hurt our budget if we can give them that full $200? So kind of helping those smaller clubs that could use that extra $75 to put on another event, or kind of that. So that's what I kind of mean by that. That's a good question.
I saw Stephanie on you, and then Joe.
You have a lot of good platforms for like the future finance boards, so we've gone with that. My only question to you is that you mentioned that you are VP of Finance for IFC. If you were also elected for VP of Finance for SGA, how do you plan on juggling kind of both of those at the same time? Both really big.
That's a very good point. So my role on the Interfraternity Council is basically I set the budget basically I just came in this spring, so I set the budget and just kind of monitor our financial transactions. So I've already set the budget for this semester and next semester. So the bulk of my job is kind of done. It's more behind the scenes, just making sure financial transactions are up to date in our financial records. This will definitely be my first priority, and I will be able to manage that very well with my other position.
So you said your position last semester was education, correct?
Yeah.
So I think a few people before you talked about how that's something they wanted to focus on in the future. So I was wondering what you did last semester to advance finance board.
So, like I kind of mentioned, this was a position that the previous Vice President, Nick Wong, actually created as a new thing. And I think, so a lot of the stuff I would do is if a budget came in and it didn't make a lot of sense to us, I would meet with them and try to understand some of their, because some clubs put together a budget and they don't quite understand what they should put on there, what part goes where. So kind of working with those clubs and trying to get to those clubs before they come in. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not the case, and what I'll have to do is they give us a presentation, I'll just have to meet with them afterwards and just try to clarify. It's definitely something I think that needs to be more empowered, and I think it wasn't as well defined this year as it probably should be. And I think whoever the Vice President of Finance for it, like it should be a priority to make sure that, and that's why I said in my platform too, to just have the education chair, like focus on education and not public relations as well, so they can just really focus on getting out to the student organization.
So that is all the time we have. I'm going to sort of suspend the rules and offer you all the opportunity to ask questions for anyone after you've heard all the presentations. If you have questions for any individuals, or for all of them that you'd like to hear briefly. Anything at all?
Can I ask this is a brief one kind of for everyone. So all of you talked about how education is important to you guys. How do you feel your specific tactics would be different or better than the other candidates?
Want to start with Justin or?
So, Lydia, do you want to start?
Not particularly, but sure. So I think just through lots of outreach and having someone that's really dedicated to meeting with the people before they even come in, because we get a lot of confusion, and then the people that come in often get frazzled, and their message and what they're actually trying to accomplish gets lost, and we kind of end up dismissing them. So having someone that's job is, well, we have someone whose job it is, but making sure that they're meeting with them, emailing back and forth with the treasurers or whoever is coming in right before they come in to make sure that the budget makes sense, and any of those like big questions or like numbers things are settled before they come in and tell us what they want to do, I think would be a really good way to do that.
So I guess for me, something personally, being a non-finance person, something that I've kind of learned over time is how to take something that's kind of complex and break it down to make it simpler, because that's how I had to learn everything in finance board. I'm not a finance person, so I had to say, well, this is kind of like this. So I guess that's partially why I'm pushing so much actual outreach and making sure that people understand, because if we say meet with someone in Starbucks or meet with them at Block Party, we can say, hey, we're finance board, this is what it is, cut and dry. And I can explain it in terms that are simple and easy to understand, because that's how I have to understand it. And I think that just by setting a basis beforehand for a lot of organizations that would be coming in of, hey, this is what we are, this is how we operate, I think it would just make everything really efficient moving on after that.
Jimmy?
I think serving as education chair last semester, kind of just making sure that the budgets are looked at ahead of time and almost cleared by the education chair before they're allowed to sign up for a time, just to make sure there's not any, therefore if there's like any red flags or things we don't understand, we can fix it before. I think a lot of times we'll get a budget Tuesday and then we meet Thursday, and it's not a lot of time for us to meet and try to clarify things, and then we end up having to defer them. So almost having a process in place where they have to get cleared by the education chair, and so it kind of makes sure they don't waste their time and we don't waste our time. I think that's the best way to approach it.
And Justin?
Justin, you're muted. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
So, I mean, we have an education chair already, and I mean, but that's never been utilized in the past. I feel like what we need to do is make that education chair accessible to our student population. Make their contact information put it on our website. present so that they understand like what the matrix means, so that the fact of the matter is like we've had an education trip, but it just hasn't been utilized. We just need to make that like transparent with our student population and opening up that line of communication with them for sure.
Thank you, Justin. Any other questions? Yeah, Joe.
I think to everybody, if you just talk about what your, if you have a major accomplishment that you've had on finance board or something that you're really proud of that you've done during your time.
I guess I'll start. So I think, I mean, we've talked about it a lot, but like just changing the matrix. I mean, seeing fall alternative break in I think my first year, and only seeing us being able to give them like $1,500 for like $30,000 worth of expenses was like kind of disheartening. And to see it this year for us to almost like multiply that number by 5, I thought that was really rewarding. I think one of the coolest things we get to see is we get to see all the clubs, right? And just to see how they've grown over time from year to year. And just in general, I think it's just something I'm proud of, that we've gotten more clubs every year. And I'm just proud of seeing how some of these clubs have progressed and how they've done so many amazing things and had an impact on the Butler community.
Yeah, I would definitely say, again, I mean, that's been immensely rewarding, and I'm actually sad that I missed fall, because I missed the start of it, but something that I thought was really interesting, even just from this semester, is I think there was an organization, I think it was Christian healthcare providers last year came in and they said, hey, we need some money to start up with this app that we want to make for our mission trip that we're doing, and then they came in this year and they're like, our app's working really well and we're doing this, and it was really cool to kind of see how our money actually impacted the Butler campus. And again, I kind of just go back to the story of why I actually do this. It's just kind of seeing that fact that we can take someone who has a really big passion for something and they can come in and give this like super excited presentation, and we can be like, all right, like here's the money to actually help you do that. And it's incredibly rewarding. And when you start seeing finance board like that, rather than just like, here's our money, we have it, take it, and you start seeing the actual impact that it makes, it's a really, really cool thing to see.
One of my, I think, proudest things on finance board, so something other than the grants committee that we do, is we actually set the overall SGA budget. So one of the ways that we do that is we meet with all of the different branches and boards of SGA. So last spring I was responsible for meeting with the leader of DIB, and so she like walked me through everything that they do with their budget and the needs that they have and what they've been able to accomplish, and then we adjust the budget to make sure that all of the boards are being able to do what they want to do. And I think that all of the boards of SGA are doing these really amazing things to meet students' needs, and they're spending our money, like it's student money, and it should represent all of us. So I think just something that I'm proud of is being able to hear from the students, hear from all the boards, and see how we can improve the budget and how we can improve campus through that.
Okay, so last spring, me, Ryan, Trent, and Johnny Holler, we kind of headed up this goal of re-implementing and recreating the matrix, which was, I think, one of our biggest accomplishments for sure. It had been this old matrix, and the old standards have been around since like the 1980s, operating with SGA, or something crazy like that. And so what we did was we basically recreated this matrix. We sat down and we worked out all the math and the finances, finding out a way to be able to increase funding for worthy organizations, but also decrease like lying or not inflating expenses on their reports. So that way we can be the best stewards of our money. So I definitely think that was one of our biggest accomplishments. This is like, these are like students that are currently paying tuition fees. In our budget every year. So by producing this new matrix and for our students.
Can you repeat that last little bit, Justin? Can you repeat that last little bit?
Yeah. So, definitely, like, since we've always had a surplus in our budget, or since we continually see a surplus in our budget, just being able to give out more money to worthy organizations and fund these organizations with opportunities for growth. We're investing in our current students, and that's what the entire board is all about. And that's been an incredible experience for me and for all of us on finance board, I believe.
Thank you, Justin. All right, so that'll be the last comments we have on finance board. Can you give them a round of applause? So, John is our only but yet mighty candidate for Vice President of Student Initiatives, but he still has to be voted up with confidence, so he's going to present to you. Just let me know if you want to switch slides.
Sure thing. So I'm John, and I am the current Operations Committee Coordinator on the Student Initiatives Board, and I am the only person running for the Vice President of Student Initiatives. And in addition to what I do on SGA, I also play club volleyball, so I'm also involved in other things on campus. Go ahead. And so mainly on SGA, that's when we talk about, I've been on the Operations Committee for 2 years, and some things that I've done I think have had a really big impact on this campus. So out over there on the mall are those new big gray and blue lights that are LED. That was a project that Colton, Logan, and I were able to kind of spearhead last year and submit to capital budgeting. So we were able to bring a lot of clean and efficient lights to campus and also create a more safe mall experience on campus. And also in Jordan, we added more key card access to study rooms and classrooms, so when you're out late night studying, you can get back into your room or get into a room to study or do a group project. Also going on right now, I'm working on a tobacco-free initiative. So currently, Butler is one of the only campuses in Indiana that is not tobacco-free. So we are working right now with Marion County Health Department and also with Butler University Human Resources and the rest of the administration to create a tobacco-free initiative which would allow campus to be a little more forward-thinking as we think about students, faculty, and staff and their health and their future. Also, currently there's a campus wayfinding study going on. So right now, a lot of the maps and those ugly tombstones outside of buildings are kind of outdated and they're nasty and they're gross, and there isn't a map on this campus that tells you where everything is. So right now we're working with marketing and facilities and operations to create a new interactive map that can change with campus as the Holcomb building renovation and Irvington and things like that come online, that we can create a map that is easily changeable and expandable as campus expands. Also, I have a huge passion for sustainability and being green, as you would say. So right now, we are working for more things like solar panels and LED lighting and things like that. So actually in Jordan, we have been working recently to fix the motion sensors. So right now, it doesn't work, but technically it should work, where when you enter a room or a hallway, the light should come on if no one's been in there for about 30 minutes. And right now it's not working, so that would be a huge savings in energy if we were able to do that. In addition, we'd like to bring more solar panels to campus. A lot of students don't know, but over 50% of the energy that Butler uses is actually created by solar panels. We pay a premium for that, and that's something that I'm very proud of, but not a lot of students know, and I still think that we can increase that number. And also, sub-metering for certain buildings and residence halls on campus. That's something that is in the works through capital budgeting right now, to be able to tell which buildings, like for example, Jordan or Gallahue, is using the most energy or resources, including gas, water, and electricity. Go ahead. So for forward thinking, for goals, if I were to be elected for VP of Student Initiatives, I really want to find a member's passion to cultivate their ideas for projects. So I don't want to throw a member into something that they don't like. I want to find what they're passionate about and be able to find a project for them that they really will get behind, because that's where they're going to make the most difference, is find something that they're passionate about. Also incorporate yourselves and DID for cross-board partnerships. So when a member comes and they have this very passionate idea and this project that they want to pursue, if they need more help or if there's more resources available, most likely through other arms of SGA, including Senate, DID, Finance Board, we can partner with people like you and people on Diversity Inclusion Board and Finance Board to be able to accomplish those tasks, because the more the merrier. It gets bogged down, you have a lot of schoolwork and other things to do, so the more people you have to work, the more things you can get done. Also, continue to use Slack for communication between boards. I couldn't tell you one person's email address on this campus, thank God it pops up when you type it in. But on Slack, it's really easy to communicate with different boards, because I can search Finance Board and I get a list of all of them. And I can see who I want to talk to, or if I just want to send a message to all of Finance Board. And lastly, I would like to foster a relationship with the administration that is respected to each committee. So like education advocacy, operations, academic affairs, foster that relationship with the different administrators within Butler to be able to work better on when projects come around, that we have already had that relationship established. So when we come asking for questions or for help on a project, they already know who we are and what we're doing. And thank you for your considerations. If you have any questions.
Any questions at all? Good.
How do you plan on fostering the relationship with administration? Like, how do you plan on making that better?
So actually, right now, quarterly, we do something with administrators, and we call them student leadership collaboration. So we meet on a lunch meeting with Butler administrators for different departments, and we have certain topics for each one. So if we do a similar aspect of that and meet with each committee, meets with the certain part of the administration that would be working with that, it would be very beneficial to create that relationship. So mostly operations deals with Butler facilities and operations. Academic affairs deals a lot with Provost Morris. Education advocacy deals a lot with diversity inclusion, Pulse, academic and student affairs. So creating those relationships, and when you meet those administrators through a certain kind of lunch environment, or just an environment where it's just friendly conversation, instead of the first time you're meeting them, you're asking them for something, that it tends to go a lot better when you have that relationship established.
All right, thank you so much, John. Good. All right, so you're all more welcome to stay. We're going to vote at the end of executive session, so you all will be able to hear the discussion, essentially, for everyone's protection. So you're more than welcome to stay the rest of the Senate until we go into executive session. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming in. All right, so we're going to go through, that was very kind. Very quickly, go through some old business. So resolution for the BPD committee to get funds request. Do you want to gloss over this for us very quickly, Colleen?
Yeah, so basically we are just asking for, basically for programming purposes and like the outreach education we want to do in the future. That would be for the rest of this semester, and then that would also kind of leave us in the welcome week as well. We also potentially like finance board and stuff for more money if we would need that, but this is kind of like the startup, because this is like the first time that a committee is asking for money. So it's coming from the Senate initiative. But yeah, this is basically like for the copy thing that we're doing, and then any other like outreach that we get to do at the end of the year.
Perfect. All right, so resolution 1718 number 32, whereas as Student Government Association is working to develop a relationship. All in favor, raise your back and say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Aye. All in favor of giving money for the BP committee? All opposed, say nay. Sweet. All right, so we are going to, well, is there any initial discussion about Oxfam? I doubt this kids are watching right now. Does some who, I don't know, were you the person who worked with them? Who worked with them for the org?
Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, I don't remember, I remember somebody, but basically, does anyone else like know Oxfam?
All right, all those in favor, well, I'm gonna read it. Whereas the Student Government Association endorses Oxfam America, and whereas student
Motion
organizations.
to suspend.
All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, all in favor of endorsing Oxfam America, raise your placard, say aye. Aye. Oh, okay. So wait, keep them up. For if you are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. All right. All right, all opposed, raise your placard, say nay.
Nay.
Okay. Passes. For the record, the first thing I was asking is you have to vote to suspend the meeting. So, right? Right. Oh, really? They can just move? Oh, one? First time. All right. So, Senate Resolution 1718, number 30, to endorse the MAC, the MAC on campus. Is there any discussion on the floor? All right. So, whereas the Student Government Association. All right. All in favor of approving the student organization being the MAC on campus, raise the placard, say aye. Aye. All opposed, raise the placard, say nay. All right, so we're down to let's present a resolution, and for the sake of time, we are going to suspend the rules to have to wait a week because she'll explain why.
Okay, guys, hi. So as you all know, spring sports is coming up. We're super excited about it. Basically this year, actually last year while I was abroad, so I wasn't watching that. Just kidding. But they cut all the funding for t-shirts for independent students. So there are no independent funds for students to be wearing t-shirts. And they talked to me and gave me a lot of good reasons why they did that. All the shirts were being used, and it was money that could have been going to a charity that was being used on shirts that are not being used. So I tried to come up with a solution for that because, as many of us know, 65% of our campus is independent, and this is a huge tradition at our campus. So what I am proposing in this resolution is that we, the SGA, buy these shirts and for the independent students, that they order the shirts. Now, how we're going to make it is that you give a $5 donation and you receive the shirts. And anyone can buy it. So we'll just say spring sports, won't say independent team, won't do anything like that. Also, in addition, so you can go, like if we all want to, I'm an RA, if I want to have an RA team because we're all independent, I can order all red shirts. I'll have a red one and I'll have all my friends order red. But if I am also, just like the color blue, I can have a blue one. If me as a member of the MSA or crew wants to wear yellow, I ask all my friends to order yellow. So we're all our own mini team and still have that community. This way our funds will not be used, or the donations will be used to go directly to the Special Olympics. So we're not losing any money on that. That charity money is going there. SGA is buying these shirts and you pre-order these shirts. So we're not wasting any money. So in order to get it, I'm projecting that we'll get about 150 shirts. We had 80 students, independent students, sign in to the games last year, which is actually a lot higher than I anticipated. And so hopefully when they have these shirts, people feel more welcome to come, and we can spread more awareness that there is an independent team and that you don't have to be grouped to be a part of this awesome event that we have. And also can see their money directly affecting the Special Olympics athletes. So $1,500, it is a lot of money. That's how much I'm asking for, is 150 shirts, and also make them cute, because you know, I don't like the shirts. So, and anyone can buy these shirts. It'll be up for purchase. So if you just want a spring sports shirt and you are a member of a sorority, fraternity, or any club, you can still buy one and know that your money's going to a good place. Any questions?
I hope this doesn't happen, but like if the order, like if you don't get as many shirt orders as you're expecting and it doesn't cost $1,500,
just stays right there.
So you're just going to use like up to $1,500.
Yes. Yes.
So I will say, well, Mr. Machado, you brought this. You originally needed 2,000, right?
Yes. Originally, I wanted 2,000.
So our budget this year is 41,000, and we spent like maybe 3. So we have the room if you want to change it to 2,000.
Can I change it to 2,000?
Well, we have actually gone up above 3, but we're going to Ryan. But still, we have wiggle room for an extra $500.
So let's do $2,000. Anyone else have any questions?
All right. So, would you do the honors of reading through them?
Wait, do you
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Butler University Student Senate. Awesome, thank you.
All right, all in favor of voting to give money to base service, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Great. Wonderful news.
Okay.
All right, so we'll block constitution. We're gonna have to. Okay. So.
I know.
Who is it?
I don't know. Can I?
So.
Because it's YouTube.
Oh, it's a YouTube live stream.
So, all right, we are going to introduce. Like you all have been aware, we've been working on updating the SJ Constitution because, frankly, it was sort of prehistoric. And so, a lot of our, very committed senators, alongside some other representatives from different SJ boards, we've been going through and altering. So, Becky right now is loading the old version on, and then you all should have access. They have access to this right now. You all have access to the updated one, so you can go through and compare. Starting off, this will be updated to match our names essentially, but and that the date is obviously updated, so that's how you can tell the difference, March 21st. And so, major things that I can think off the top of my head that you should go look for. One, we've changed the name of the directors to vice presidents, essentially because it's really difficult to measure why, let's say, the vice president of finance and the director of programming, it's really hard to compare how much work they do because the work is totally different, and how do you quantify hard work someone puts a little amount of time versus all the time they spend. So in order to be equitable, we're changing all the names to vice president. They'll still be chosen the same way. It's just a sort of a title change, and then we're working on changing the pay for all of them, which we'll talk about as well. Other things that what are the other ones? Do we start with pay? Some other major things you'll notice are that Becky had the good sense to essentially they would have the same paragraph written 10 different times in the Constitution, and so we combined that under membership, correct?
No, under a general.
Oh, under general in the beginning. And so.
Not
Okay.
read it, but just.
All right, would you actually you know better than I? You can by all means. So Becky's the queen of this, just so you all are aware.
So basically, are you guys looking at the old one? Pull up the old one if you're not. It's in the same place where you can find this one. So basically, you can just have a reference for that. But we just made everything a lot more simple and did a lot of, structural changes to the document itself. Like instead of putting SGA, like the acronym, Student Government Association is written out everywhere. Student Senate, minus this part, mind you, and never mind, I will change that. And everything is changed to Student Senate. We've outlined the structure better, and a thing is we've talked about the tier system, so we've made a unified over all of SGA, so all the different boards are now the same, and then you can see that down in Appendix A, the only appendix, and that's this chart, and it clearly lines out if you're eligible to serve on another board or just different committees and stuff like that. So it makes it a lot easier.
I want to gloss over that really quick. So essentially, there's a rule in the Constitution that you can't serve on more than one student government board, and that's been in place for probably 4 or 5 years now. But the implementation of that has been sort of difficult to follow. For example, when I was interviewing parliamentarians, I was juggling, well, this person is also involved in this student government or position, but we really know that position is super low commitment, but it violates the rules. So essentially, I made it more clear and more inclusive. So. The tier 1 includes the president and all of cabinet, and so essentially that means if you were in the cabinet, you were tier 1, you're not eligible for anything else. So the same thing goes for tier 2. That includes senators, so you can't be a senator and also a member of Student Initiatives Board. And then we have, this is what we call the coordinator level. And so, for example, Student Initiatives Boards, they have 6 coordinators who oversee their different committees. And so we've essentially, after talking and consulting all the cabinet members and seeing how their board works, they all, everyone has a coordinator level. So like VP of Marcom, they have their what was previously called core. So basically all the parts are still there. I just outlined it so that everyone has a future reference that a coordinator level is not eligible. And then tier 3 and tier 4 are essentially you are eligible to be in other positions. So if you are just like a photographer at Marcom, you're available, you're allowed to be involved in other things. And then, for example, we created a tier 4 for volunteers because there's no reason you can't be SGA president and also go participate in media. That would be silly. So this is sort of how it's outlined, and we spent kind of the entire year crafting all of this and deciding how these positions fit in based off of someone's involved or like commitment to work. And essentially, the reasons for this original constitutional rule is that essentially we want to make as many opportunities for students to be involved as possible. Student government is supposed to serve the student body, and what had happened historically is that you just have like what I like to call the Butler All-Stars, where they're involved in literally 5 different things, and they're essentially dominating campus, and they become an elite group. And that was sort of actually one of my platform points, was that I wanted to take the elitism away from student government. This goes into that, but it actually provides, it's not taking away as many positions as the normal rule would. It just makes it more clear and inclusive. So, we'll talk.
Is there any questions on that at all?
Yeah.
Sorry, just a clarification. So if you can hold multiple like tier 3 and tier 4 positions, but nothing about that, right?
Right. It's not like you could be technically be tier 2 and tier 4. Does that make sense? Because tier 4 is essentially just like the UDM.
Okay.
And so there are some like a little bit of wiggle room in that, like for example, bids, all of their work is done before the rest of the year. They literally finish their stuff before school even starts, and so that person will be able to move into another position. So other things, do we want to talk about pay?
So membership is pretty much all the same, so it's all the stuff that was before, with the tier chart. So student senate, do you want to explain the changing 13?
Oh yeah, so I think I brought this up to you all. We're getting rid of the class officer positions after this next year. I'm getting a half nod from Jack Griffin. So I've been talking to a lot of different class officers. Oh, I thought you were going like a. I've been talking to a lot of the class officers, been talking to Dr. Ross and other administrators who've been overseeing these. Essentially, they do a lot of what Senate does already. They also do what Programs Board does, and there's no reason to repeat events. They also get their own chunk of that's separate from the SGA budget, and overall, they're basically doing the work of a senator. So instead of having one individual for each senator's class seat, we're going to increase that number to 2, so it reflects everyone else. And then on top of that, the treasurer and the secretary position of the class officers will be gone, and then Programs Board will be overtaking their programming responsibilities. So for example, like senior YTs and things like that will be Coalition of Programs Board, aided with student affairs. And so that's essentially because talking to Erica and Matt specifically, they basically do outreach events, which is Senator's job. And so it's just clarifying and being more deliberate with student dollars, because they have a lot of additional money that oftentimes isn't used and exists elsewhere. So it's just consolidate and make it more efficient. And also, class officers have not fallen under student government per se, but we still pay for them. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real question.
That is a good point. I made sure Neil just asked where they're going to sit. So I told Dr. Ross when Atherton inevitably gets remodeled that we need an official Senate room. And
So how many would it have?
4.
Okay. So there's 30 senators at the moment.
30.
They're 32.
Okay, well, now it says a total of 34 senators on the.
She'll check on that. She'll make a note.
36.
Other questions?
That's why we're doing this, guys. So the attendance policy, so what we added to this was that we made it so that it says in the Constitution that these meetings will be Wednesday, 6:30, so what it is now, and make that a standard so that people that are running will always know that, so that there won't be any problems with people needing proxies. Now we added a proxy thing, because there's nothing in the Constitution about that before. So I'm not going to read this, you can go ahead and read through that, but basically it's a proxy system. The main point of the proxy system is we're not allowing semester-long proxies. That's why we made a standard time. If you can't meet that, sucks to suck. Like, we're just, I mean, we're gonna stick with this. This is a dedicated position.
And so on top of that, a lot of universities do this. Like, let's say you can put advertisements. This position, our Senate will always be at 6:30. This will also help with our student concerns forum and things like that. People actually know when that is. You can put out a water bottle and put stuff out. Yes, Joe?
What information? Are we voting on VP of Finance today?
Yes, I'm going to go about 10 minutes over. So
Can we move? Are we voting on the Constitution today?
No, but we have to introduce it so we can vote on it later. That's why.
Can this be considered introduced and then we actually completely go through it next week so we can talk about VP Finance while it's still fresh?
Would you like to move to vote?
I would like to move to vote on the Constitution being
Can we
introduced.
finish this one?
Yeah.
One statement you're talking about first?
I'm gonna honor Marjana too, and then we'll see. I'm breaking Robert's rules, but it's fine. Yes.
So if we're studying abroad next year, we can't run for SGA Senate.
What do other people think about that very quickly?
Can you run on the Ira part of it pretending?
What was the question?
So we'll
What'd you
leave it
say?
at this. You did, so it's your opportunity to say yay or nay to any of the edits. You can explore that and talk about the proposed solution. All right, I'm going to honor, yes, Amy?
With the proxies, are we limiting how many times someone can have a proxy in like a semester? Because like at that point, then it's like, are they really the secondary one they never actually fund the meetings, you know what I mean? I feel like that's the vibe we're trying to like get rid of, as not having semester long proxies, but if you say every week, oh, I'm just gonna send a proxy, then like.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So we will explore that. Now I'm gonna honor, so like the thing is, if you have an edit or something that you want to explore, send it to Becky. All right, Joe.
Motion to table discussion until next week.
Is there a second? Second. All right, raise your back and say aye, or all opposed say nay. All right, great, stable. Now, you just want to put the screen. All right, so I'm gonna.
I spelled a lot of wrong guys.
So I'm going to start with John Laheda. Any discussion on our vice president of SID candidate?